Ranked among the top public universities in the U.S., the Ohio State University Fisher College of Business provides an outstanding MBA experience tailored to your interests and leadership development. Whether switching careers, enhancing a career, or starting a business, an MBA from Fisher provides tomorrow's leaders with the knowledge and skills to succeed today. Visit fisher.osu.edu to learn more about Fisher's personalized MBA program and competitive scholarship opportunities.
Welcome to the Touch MBA Admissions Podcast. Do you need help figuring out which schools to apply to or how to get into the world's top MBA programs? Hey, you're not alone. Join thousands of others on this podcast and on our site, touchmba.com, as they seek the admissions edge. And now, here's your host, Darren Joe.
What's up, guys? How are you all doing? This is Darren, the host of the Touch MBA podcast. Welcome to the show. This week, I brought on Dirk Hopfl from IE Business School to discuss the differences between full-time MBAs, part-time MBAs, executive MBAs, and online MBAs. IE Business School is a top-ranked school in all these categories, and Dirk has represented all these types of programs. So I thought he would be the perfect person to help you distinguish what are the differences and which program could fit you best. A couple years ago, Dirk and I recorded an episode on the differences between MBA programs and master's programs, and that has been one of our most well-received and downloaded episodes. So I wanted to do the same thing, but with MBA programs. Here at Touch MBA, we really try to help you figure out which schools fit you best. And we're really focused on school selection. So if you're having trouble deciding, not only what type of MBA you need, but also which schools could fit you best, we know there's so many options out there. Go head over to touchmba.com where you can submit your resume and your career goals. And we'd be happy to give you some free school selection advice, as well as some admissions advice on how you can bolster your profile before you apply to business school. You can also share your resume there with over 10 top-ranked programs around the world to get an idea of which programs may fit you best, which programs may be interested in you before you apply. So all that's at touchmba.com. Go check it out. And let's get straight to my chat with Dirk, who is the director of IE Center Singapore. Dirk has worked for IE Business School for over 10 years, both on the admissions side and the marketing side, and he's, super well connected with firms throughout Southeast Asia. So he has a good idea of what firms are looking for in graduates as well. So let's get straight to our chat. I know when many of you are looking at MBA programs and exploring options for your graduate education, I'm sure many of you have confronted multiple MBA offerings, whether that's a full-time MBA, a part-time MBA, an EMBA, an executive MBA, or even perhaps an online or distance learning MBA. And you're trying to figure out, which one of these programs makes the most sense for you. What are the advantages and disadvantages of each program, and which one fits you best? So to answer these questions, it's my pleasure to bring on Dirk Hopfl from IE Business School. In fact, this is the third time Dirk has been on the podcast. So you're number one, Dirk.
Thank you, Darren. Thanks for having me again.
No, always great to have you back on the show. And one of our last episodes, we discussed MBA programs versus master's programs. But in this show, it's all about the MBA and the different formats. And Dirk has a ton of experience in this industry, representing all these different types of programs for IE Business School. So it's the perfect guy to get on the show. So Dirk, my first question is, could you just broadly, in broad strokes, outline the difference between these four types of MBA programs?
Yes, happily doing that. I think the biggest difference probably is full-time versus a part-time program. Because for the full-time program, the condition is that you leave your job, you move to a different geography and leave a lot of things behind. Then probably you open up to a new environment, a new world, let's say, which hopefully will open for you. Part-time program, online programs, EMBA programs, they're all allow you to consider working. They allow you to or to continue working. They will allow you to stay in your geography and continue studying while you are, let's say, engaged professionally. Then I think there are different ways of delivery. A part-time program typically is characterized by kind of weekend modules at the university, most likely, or the business school in your hometown. An online or a blended program will combine face-to-face sessions in different locations over maybe a 1 week or 2 weeks period. And EMBA is pretty much the same, I would say, but the difference will most likely be the profile of the candidate.
Yes, and how so? Could you explain that?
The EMBA is characterized by, for usually a more experienced audience. Generally, EMBAs will have 10 plus years of experience. Mm-hmm. Every university has a different definition of what executive means for them.
Yeah.
Okay, there is not a clear cut definition, also not by the accreditation bodies. So some people might offer, or some business schools might offer, an executive MBA for people who have 5 years of work experience. Some other institutions, they will offer an executive MBA for candidates with at least 5 years of experience on the management level, which means they have kind of on average 15 years of work experience. So it's defined by, well, probably every business school differently. So there's not a clear-cut naming, I would say, as it would be probably in the full-time MBA.
Yes. Okay. So in IE's case, because I know IE has programs, all 4 of these programs, which are highly ranked. So for your EMBA program, do you guys specify you're looking for at least 10 years of experience versus your full-time MBA program, you're looking for what? At least 2 or 3 years of experience, correct?
Right. So for our full-time MBA, the international MBA, we require a minimum of 3 years of work experience. For an executive MBA, as I mentioned, we require at least 5 years of work experience on a management level.
Got it.
So this defines, this does not mean that a person could have, let's say, 10 years of work experience, but 5 years on a management level. If you have a strong career growth and good performance, so he might be, let's say, in that level of interaction in that class profile. There might be other people with 20 years of work experience deciding to do an EMBA. So I think it depends very much on the contribution they can make to their cohort rather than the effective number of years of work experience.
Got it. Yeah. So that's really interesting because we get a lot of questions here at Touch MBA from candidates who maybe have somewhere between 7 and 10 years of experience, right? So they're right at that borderline traditionally, right? That would separate full-time and EMBA candidates. And they're trying to figure out which program to apply to. Like when those types of applicants come to you, what do you advise them in terms of, how would you counsel them in terms of choosing which program would fit them the best?
It's a very personal decision. So I usually advise candidates to think about where they are at their career, what they pretend to do after graduation, how they are considered within the organization, if they can grow, continue working while studying at the same time.
Yeah.
There might be personal reasons in terms of income, if you have family, you have to support kids, your parents, which might need additional financial support. You might not be able to quit your job to a different geography. So, and third probably element might be financial aid, right? The financial resources. So you might not have the funds to go, abroad, study for 1 year without additional. So I think it's very much a personal decision rather than, I would say definitely a career choice doing that. Yeah.
Yes. And how is the curriculum different between these programs?
I think it depends very much from every institution to every institution. So I think there's not a clear cut. In general, a full-time MBA program has more academic sessions, which means you have more content, right? It could be more content in one particular area or more different content and having a broader structure, let's say, as a program as you would have in a part-time program. Supposing that programs are accredited by one of the accreditation bodies, the curriculum itself, let's say the core content, if it's a full-time MBA or a part-time MBA, has to be the same. Yeah. So there's not such a big difference. If you compare within part-time programs and you look into a part-time, a blended program or executive MBA, many times there's probably more leadership emphasis, more strategy emphasis in an EMBA versus in a part-time or an online MBA, which looks probably at a very similar type of profile as the full-time MBA.
Right. And what about career support? Because we read so much online that, the full-time MBA degree is really strong for those who want to switch careers. Because obviously, you're quitting your job, you're committing all your time and effort into that full-time MBA program, and then, you hope to hop out with a different career in some shape or form. What are the career support options like? Whether you're a full-time student at IE or a part-time student or an online MBA student or an EMBA student. Is that different? Is there different levels of support for those different programs?
We make absolutely no difference between the type of program you're studying at IE. So the career support is the same. Okay, so you always have the chance to approach our talent and careers department to get the support, the advice, the suggestions, let's say, from our experts. If you decide, let's say, for in terms of career options, so when you plan to take a full-time MBA, and as you mentioned earlier, more people do it because of a career change, which I think is the right choice to do a full-time program when you want to make a career change, simply because you, in some way, take a decision also which is visible to the future employer that you are willing to change, right? If you do a part-time program and you see, I want to continue working because I might need to support the family, but I want to make a big career shift, it's a little more challenging to achieve that same goal, right? So it would then require much more intense networking, much more visibility through employers, and probably a stronger story why you are want to make a big career shift, sticking in some way to the same professional environment while doing the MBA.
And what about online MBAs? Because that's really interesting to me, right? Being mostly distant from the program. How do they access career resources?
I think as we're doing it now, so we have a conversation over the phone. You have a lot of video support, so there's a lot of video conferencing involved. So nowadays, I think it's very easy to have a conversation with a career expert, with somebody from the career management center. It should not differ, let's say, to a face-to-face meeting with any of our counselors or guidance counselors from our career management center. Usually, we assign one of our advisors to each program, and this advisor usually travels as well to the residential periods in case of the blended programs, so that they can personally touch base with that person from careers.
In terms of the admissions side, could you spell out the differences between what the different MBA programs are looking for in candidates?
Again, I think it's a more personal choice to choose the MBA. So in terms of admission, being MBAs, we're looking pretty much for the same things. So we want to assure that other candidates can learn from you. When you decide to do an MBA, it doesn't matter if it's a full-time program or a part-time program. The level of interaction is very similar. The communication is similar. You probably have more tools available when you do a part-time and online program, just because you continue communicating while you're in your personal environment. while others are in different locations around the world. So you have an additional level of communication in part-time or blended programs. But let's say from the admissions criteria itself, we don't make any particular difference being a part-time or being a full-time program. So everybody has to contribute to the program. We're expecting the same level of engagement in the teamwork, in the communication environment, and the engagement, let's say, as an alumni as well.
Yeah. So it's not. Is it easier? And I know I'm going to put you on the spot here a little, Dirk, but is it easier to get into the part-time programs than the full-time programs?
Definitely not. I think usually, and here in this case, talking about IE, our cohorts, our group classes are much, much smaller in the blended programs.
Yeah.
So we keep every class to 30 people. So it's probably a much smaller intake, which then increases the competition as well, right? So in that sense, I think it is definitely not easier to get in the online program or in the full-time program. If you think about it, and we have candidates who might decide on applying for an online program and then decide for whatever personal reasons, they might decide, no, I want to do the full-time program, this switch from one to the other program. It's not a major process. Typically, there's not a second interview involved just because we consider them as the same profile, or both programs are aimed at the same profile. And it's just the delivery, the format, which is different between those.
I see. So you're not, because I would think, for example, like with the full-time programs, is IE more concerned about post-MBA goals for those full-time students, considering that, the school will have to play probably a bigger role, right, in helping to place these students and support these students in switching careers. Like, is that more important as a full-time MBA applicant to those career goals, or would you still say it's similar across all the programs?
Of course, everybody has his own career goals. If I want to do a full-time program or a part-time program, most likely the career search in a part-time program is, I would say, slower or a little bit more flexible.
Yeah.
Right? But everybody who's doing, let's say, an MBA program is doing the program not just for the sake of doing a program. So the investment is probably too high to just take it as I have too much free time, I do an MBA. So there's always a career goal connected to it. Maybe if it's within the organization to get to the next level, which for large organizations, they require certain level of degrees. Maybe it's because I still want to shift, let's say, my company or my industry, or I want to get additional knowledge. And those objectives might not differ too much from students who aim for a full-time degree. What is, of course, clear that full-time students will have and will need more support from our Career Management Center, but this does not, let's say, impact the career choices at the end of the day, right?
Yes. Yeah, understood. And in your experience, how are companies, in Southeast Asia and around the world viewing these different types of MBA graduates? Like, are they seeing your full-time MBAs differently from your part-time MBAs? And I mean, specifically, I'd be curious to know about your online MBAs as well, because I know, IE has one of the top ranked online MBA programs in the world. So you have that ranking behind you. And I'm wondering how companies are actually viewing, full-time versus part-time MBAs in the workplace.
Companies have different approaches to that. So some companies, and especially some industries, might be a little bit more traditional towards full-time versus online programs. So they might prefer more full-time programs, or because the recruiter has done his own MBA, full-time MBA program, and sees this as the only option, because this person might not have had any contact, let's say, with an online degree or a blended degree, right? So we see on the contrast as well, some recruiters say, I want to recruit actively people who did a part-time program because this shows their commitment, their way to tackle three stakeholders at the same time, meaning your job, your family, and the MBA, which is a very, very strong commitment you have to make when you do an online program, probably at the level of IE. I think there are different types of level of engagement in different online programs. But I think it depends from company to company and even from recruiter to recruiter how he sees kind of online education or blended education. Over the years, definitely with more availability of online learning through the MOOCs, through a lot of different other kind of players in the education space, especially in the massive open online courses, opens up a little bit more the mentality of people. So actually you can learn something while you're doing it online, right?
Yeah.
So I think we have seen that shift and it's getting a little bit broader. If you think or look into more the corporate education, more and more companies want to have, let's say, an online component in their learning process.
Mm-hmm.
So where you see, let's say, companies are very, very open, which definitely has probably cost considerations as well, to train their own employees through a blended methodology. So that's the trend which won't end, let's say, abruptly. So I think, let's say, it's only will get more accepted, and probably in the longer run, there might not be too much difference between an online and a full-time program in the perception of quality, in the perception of capacity of the student doing one or the other program.
Yeah, it's almost like these companies and the recruiters have to go through it themselves, right? And then gauge, like you said. And then from those experiences, they'll be able to better assess or have a better idea of what's really required in these programs.
Yeah, many times it's the unknown, right? So
exactly.
they think about, okay, I did my full-time MBA, so I don't feel that a part-time MBA, an online MBA, a blended program, executive MBA can deliver the same value as the full-time program. So
absolutely. And what about the alumni networks for each of these programs? Because we know that's such a huge part of going to business school. And is it different? Like, for example, do the EMBAs have their own network and then the online MBAs, and how do they all interact with each other?
We typically, let's say I'm talking about IE, we don't make any difference between our full-time or part-time, or they all belong to the same community and engage with each other. So I think there's not a clusterization where you say, no, you're only a full-time program and you're the online, so we do different types of events. At the end, they're graduates from IE, from a particular business school. They belong to the same community. They most likely have had the same faculty teaching them in different formats, but let's say they earned the same degree. So from our perspective, we don't make absolutely any difference between full-time or part-time, online or EMBA candidates or graduates.
Can you almost, when you say go to a recruiting event and you have applicants coming towards you, can you almost say, okay, you seem much better suited for a full-time MBA than an online MBA, than a part-time MBA, than an EMBA? I guess what I'm trying to get at is, like, are there certain types of applicants that you would recommend to each of these programs?
I think it's probably difficult to see it in the kind of an MBA fair or in any type of event. Probably when you have a larger conversation, you most likely will find out through the conversation if it's a candidate which might be a little more better suited for a full-time or a part-time program. Again, I think it depends very much on the design of the part-time program, how it's structured. If it's a design where there's not too much interaction between the classmates along the program, a more self-study approach, then of course it requires a lot of self-dedication, a lot of kind of self-perseverance to actually go through it. in our blended programs, we have a kind of a daily ongoing interaction, which forces you to be committed to the program along the whole stretch of the, 10 to 15 months as our programs last. So I think that's kind of a more personal commitment, which you have to make while you're kind of have to combine it with work, with your family. Sometimes you see people not doing a part-time program because they feel they have the flexibility to choose, let's say.
Yes.
They might say, oh, no, I don't feel that I'm that committed. I prefer to dedicate all my time to the master programs. Otherwise, I get kind of diverted my dedication, right? So they see themselves, okay, I might be better suited for a full-time program. They might have some reservations towards learning online, which happens as well. Many times it's because of their lack of knowledge of how day-to-day works and how engaging it might be and how much learning they get additionally out of an online program than they might get out of the full-time program. So,
no, I think that's such a good point. It's like that self-awareness, knowing yourself as a student, where you would thrive, in what types of environments would you thrive. I think that's such a good point. And I think over this conversation, I've learned that there's no clear-cut answer that we can give you guys, like, okay, you're this type of applicant, you should be in this program, because every applicant's case is different and there's so much subtlety to your own professional and personal context and the programs you're targeting. Like you said, Dirk, there's differences, right, between the world's best business schools in terms of how they serve up their EMBA programs and online MBA programs. So you're still going to have to do that research to find that fit. But I know schools like IE are more than happy to offer help if, you're interested in one of their programs. You can talk to someone on their staff for sure. And I'll include links to IE's webpage and advisors in the show notes to this episode. But Dirk, I just wanted to leave you the soapbox one more time if you had any last tips, or maybe you see any misconceptions in this area in terms of advising applicants between these different MBA programs.
I think it's again, I think coming to the very first point, so it's a personal decision which type of program you choose. I think quality doesn't differ between one or the other program if you think about the same institution. It's more the personal fit, how it fits your personal, your economic, and your professional environment at that particular time when you think about doing an MBA program.
Yeah. Okay, let's end it there. Thank you so much, Dirk, once again for your time. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you, Darren.
Thanks for listening to the Touch MBA podcast. Don't be shy. We have a mailing list. Go to touchmba.com and get yourself signed up. And we'll keep you posted with the best tips and insider interviews on how to get into your number one school. You can also find us on Twitter and Facebook at Touch MBA. See you soon.